world is burning, literally and metaphorically. Evening, Tony. I sense some movement in the force.
How come I don't see Tony?
I'm just presuming it is Tony. He's always here at this time.
I'm so tired.
Yeah, it won't be long.
Must have been 1 or 2 we went to bed watching that thing, huh?
What we're watching?
The
Oh, yes,
homeless.
yeah. The homeless people.
Oh, there was some kerfuffle on the other side of the railway line today.
In regards to what?
No one knows why, but there was a tactical response. They threw grenades, told the people to get down and drop their weapons. Channel 7 was there.
Right?
Yeah. I'm going to read a speech from a movie shortly. It's from 1976.
Here is a speech from the movie Newsfront. Some of you will remember it, I'm sure. The words are very poignant for today. I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the streets. And there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do. And there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. And we sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides, 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. And it's like everything everywhere is going crazy. So we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house and slowly the world we are living in is getting smaller. And all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my television and my steel-belted radials. And I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime on the streets. All I know is that first we've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being, God damn it. My life has value. So I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. I want you to get up right now. Things have got to change. But first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm mad as hell. It's an interesting monologue by the actor in the movie Newsfront. It reflected a time in 1976, oil crisis, riots, vandalism, protests, and yet the words could fit comfortably into 2020. The world has gone mad, and no one in power, leaders, seem to know what to do. There are no leaders leading us out of this. One of the things I did see today, and it wasn't missed by many people, hello Death, is several officers, many officers actually, got down on one knee. That's a reflection of what happened in the football in America. But it was good to see. I did see one officer walk out of the line. I know he was getting yelled at by his divisional leader, but he walked up to a lady on a motorbike and he gave her a hug. I don't think many people would see men in uniform as being just like they are, but they are. It's their job. It's what they do. That's how they get their pay. That's how they build their 401k. Most police officers, after a period of time, don't want to be there. Trust me, they don't. Many police officers die in the line of duty. I'm not for one moment condoning the actions over decades of police brutality, particularly to African American men. But it's not just African American men. It's institutionalized thought processes of how they're trained. And when you think about the chain of command from a police officer kneeling on someone's neck and causing them to die, they're employed by someone, they're trained by somebody. And it goes up the line. And ultimately, if you want to be really critical, when you come to a particular country, no matter where it is on the planet, the unsettling things that I've seen all around the globe, it's not just the US, is that leaders are not leading. So the people will react. Until people step up and lead a country, it's just going to be chaos. Like in the movie. Get up and tell them you're as mad as hell. But that's okay. What would I know? Really is death. It's like the same shit on a different day. I've lived long enough to see protests over all sorts of things. Yep. We have a train, private train, goes around the block.
That's my train set.
Just people's inhumanity to each other is just incredulous. Racism has probably never been as high as it is now than it has been over the last 50 or 60 years. It's a hidden racism. It's shown by the actions of people, not necessarily words. The US calling out the National Guard. It's actually true, because it's very, very still on some nights. It's quite a long way away. The wind blows in this direction and we get the noise. Sounds like it's in the backyard, but it's not. We always get still nights during winter, and we just entered winter today. First day of winter in Australia is June the 1st. Oh, we'd be further than that. But we used to live in Richmond in New South Wales, and we were down an alleyway, great little spot actually, very quiet, except 70 metres away was a train line every half hour, because it was the end of the line. And we lived not too far away there from an Air Force base, so we would have the sound of traffic, the sound of planes, and the sound of trains.
Yeah.
Trains, planes, and automobiles. It was good on the days they did the military exercises, though.
Yeah, but they stopped that. That was the last
Yeah.
year.
We had F-18s go straight up above our house. The roar, the rumble on the ground was deafening. That's just Mrs. Angels on a motorbike.
Yeah, just take me bike out for a ride.
She's back now. Interesting watching quite a lot of these protests. Obviously the opportunist looting that's going on.
Which has got nothing to do with the damn riot.
No. And there are genuine people just expressing their grief. But a combination of the two, and, let's be honest, loads of rubbernecking. People walk around with mobile phones saying, I'm broadcasting live from the riot. And thousands of people watch.
Yeah, well, same as watching it on the news. That's exactly what the news people do, so that doesn't really matter. It's just the fact what people are doing.
next step, of course, in this pretend revolution, which is not a revolution, is the burning of banks. It happened before. And it happened in sequence, just like now, protesting, rioting, looting, and then banks get burned. There is no riots or violence or protesting in Australia, although all of us sympathise with the death of Floyd, there's no question. The injustice that has happened for decades.
Danny's other birthday thing went down to the farm.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. They went away for the weekend
Yeah.
to the island.
Well, it's still the weekend there, isn't it?
No, it's Monday morning there now. Unless they have a long weekend, I don't know. We won't be on long because we're tired.
There she is.
We were just talking about you, Danny. Hello.
How was your day out? We're good. We're just tired. We were up late last night watching some shows on TV.
We were having we're watching television. Show.
Where they put 5 young Australians, admittedly from rich families.
Well, no, they're self-made millionaires.
They're self-made millionaires. Put them, so I made them become homeless.
Yeah, just made them to live the life of homeless people.
Live the life of homelessness. It was quite interesting.
They didn't cope that well.
No. We got the second one's on next week, is it?
I think so, yeah.
I don't want to be up till 2 o'clock in the morning again.
So we hope you had a good weekend. It's funny watching, I don't mean funny as in hilarious, but it's funny watching people protesting and being angry. And obviously the pinpoint is police, but they're angry about everything. The protesting that's occurring, it's not just the US, the protests all going around the world. They're angry at the fact that they've had enough of everything. They're tired of living on the breadline even when they work. And I think someone did quote it in a newspaper today that it's the Western world's version of the Arab Spring, the uprising. May well be. When you treat people badly over generations. It goes either one way or the other. One, they just accept their lot and go through the motions, or eventually it builds up and they get up, like I said in the movie Newsfront. They're mad as hell and they are not going to take it anymore. The inequality around the planet is staggering. We can all live comfortably, but the people that rule the planet quite like the idea that they stay powerful and rich and we just get by. I think that's the real anger. People have had enough of being drones. The big split between China and the US is happening as we speak. It is a Cold War. It will be a Cold War on many fronts. Yeah, there are far too many names, Denny. People's inhumanity to each other is just at a point. You know, if you believe in the Bible, you know the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, that pales into insignificance compared to the world we live in right now. Yep, the anger is built up. It's not just the one subject matter, it's many. I think the biggest one is inequality, injustice. One rule for the rich and no rules for the poor. No forgiveness for the poor. Punish them. And no one's standing up saying, I am the leader, and what we will do to get out of this is we'll have reconciliation, we'll talk. I've always believed, I don't know what you think, Danny, but and I gave an example last night, if we lived in the Bronx, and I was a police officer working in the Bronx, under my rule, I wouldn't be able to work there unless I lived in the Bronx. Go back to community policing. The police that you see on the street live next door to you. That used to work really well. People could talk just in general to an off-duty policeman and say, look, I'm not really happy with these kids on the street and blah, blah, blah. Something would get done. When you've got a force that's moving in just primarily to do a job and they don't know the people, there's no connection. There's zero connection. In fact, there's more anger because people don't know you. So they consider you an enemy, not a peer or a friend. So unless people realise that unless your police force lives in the area they work, they're foreigners to the people that live in that district. I hope that's one of the big moves that happens. Whether it's a black, white, Hispanic, whatever, police officer, he can't work in that area unless he lives in that area. There's two things that you'll gain as a police officer. If you live in the area you work, you know most of the people. You know the behaviours of people. You know where the trouble spots are. You can act upon that. But if you're from a different division, 7, 8 miles away, and you come in and try and police in an area that no one knows you, you are already marked as the enemy. We used to have people that worked in police forces who lived in the area they worked. That worked far better. I don't know if anyone's pushing for that, but that, for me, seems an obvious move to make. It's a case that the world has reached a point that we need to reset on lots of levels, loads of levels. The inequality, the injustice. Yeah, I mean, I feel sorry for people working in the police force who are good people. And it's just like on the street. Say if you get 1,000 people living in a district, there's going to be 10, mean, nasty people on the streets. And you take 1,000 police officers, there's going to be 10 nasty police officers. And I've always believed that the best way to have better policing is to have each officer mentored by a senior officer. In other words, a senior officer has to, each year, take on one new recruit and explain the ropes and how it's to be. Not just the training, but how you approach people. If you've got a police officer that's been on the beat for 20 years, he knows stuff. He should not be ignored. He should be involved in their training. But until, like I say, and I really mean this, until police officers live in the area they work, they are outsiders to the people in that area, and as such will be treated as so. It's not that hard to do, do you know what I mean? Like if you've got all the police officers working in a department, you can certainly say, okay, well, we're transferring you 3 guys back to your area. Now you've done your training, that's where you'll be working. You will work as a police officer in the area you live. But I watched a lot of those protests, Danny, and I can tell you there are so many rubberneckers with their cameras held up, just out there to watch the mayhem, like people driving past a car accident. Oh, look at that. So you've probably got 30% of the people are genuine, just protesting, saying this is wrong, we need to change. That's what they're saying. And then you've got the people that are opportunists, probably another 20 or 30% that will cause havoc and mayhem to steal and loot. And then you've probably got another 30 or 40% of people just rubbernecking with their mobile phones held high. They're not helping the situation. Looky Loos, yep, it's a good name. I think bringing in the National Guard, I know people will disagree with me, will just raise the tension. If an incident occurs between several National Guards and people, it's going to turn to shit real fast. And I heard one speech through the White House, I'm sure it must have come from the President, but he said, or the message that was given, that if needed, the military will be involved. It's starting to sound very much like a South American country, isn't it, when you think about it? Not a North American country. It was Trump, was it? Well, he's like someone walking down the beach and seeing a wounded seal and he's just poking it. Doesn't work out well for the seal and it won't work out for the person poking it. We've only got a few days in reality because the tension is so high that if a major incident occurs, it will then have nothing to do with why people are now protesting. It will be the other reason people are protesting, the inequality, the injustice, overall, for everyone, that will raise. And when you get normal people angry, that's when a government needs to run and hide. The protesters and looters have always come and gone over the decades. But if you rile a nation of normal people who have got good minds and good hearts to the point that they get angry, then the shit will really hit the fan. G'day, Tony. Clean Tony. Spick and span Tony. Squeaky clean Tony. How are you? Do you still take the rubber duck to the bathroom? Right. Very clean.
Let's send him one.
I'm always the supreme optimist that things will get better. But I think, as a realist, I think they will get better after they get a lot worse. And on top of all this, the obvious is not missed by me. I'm sure Danny's not missed it either. Hundreds of thousands of people rubbing shoulders together, protesting. There's a gag gift coming your way. It sounds dangerous. It obviously involves some small creature with hair. I can read your mind, Danny. You are pure evil. It will stand outside my office at 4 p.m. Yes, there'll be punishment. But what I was going to say, the obvious is that lots of people are going to get sick. On top of all this, and as the optimist, I hope it's not many.
No words.
You're punishing me, Danny, aren't you? In a previous life, I must have done something wrong to you. You waited these generations of regenerations to get back at me. But I think in the next few days, if we can get away with no major incidents, and I'm predominantly talking about the National Guard here. A lot of these guys are young blokes with a uniform. They get a bit of a paycheck, but sometimes they could get nervous. I hope there are no incidents at all.
Unseen photos and footage they're showing of the royal family.
On telly.
Yeah.
Actually, the Queen was photographed today riding her horse.
I thought that was an old photo.
No?
That's when they said it's special on tonight photos that have not been released.
Well, she's back on it today, apparently. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Danny. We'll know in a few weeks.
Well, not just shoulder to shoulder, people yelling, spitting, sweating,
Oh,
whatever.
like a lot of these
All over the
states are
place.
still spiking in cases now, and they've just reopened, and now this. And the crowds have not been enormous, but it's a game of mathematics with the virus. If you have 1,000 people, they will disperse and go back to their homes and meet another 20 or 30 people. So it may not just be the number of people that were at the protests, but who they give it to. There's a lot of anger. And I did predict this was coming many weeks ago, that people would be on the streets, some would loot, but they would be there because they're angry and they're sick and tired of it. I just hope there are no major incidents, and in these next few days it's imperative that no major incident occurs. like the deaths of 3 or 4 people through the National Guard in particular, because the next step is the military, and then you're living in a South American country. It could crush America if the virus spikes out of control and they've got to shut down certain places again and the economy just does not recover. You are back to 1929. You are back to a depression. And even on the best scenario of what could unfold now moving forward, we've got a decade of recovery. That's the good scenario. And I don't care about Democrats or Republicans, but the rhetoric coming out of the White House blaming all the left for all the problems. You need to realise who's running the country, not who used to run the country. I have a great deal of respect for people showing their emotive response by protesting. It's a good thing. It's a venting process. In fact, I think, like I say, I don't care about Republicans or Democrats. I see people as people. But politically, I cannot see the president being re-elected. His handling of the coronavirus has been disastrous. His communication with Democratic governors has been vile at best. No cooperation. And then blaming previous administrations and the left for all the problems that are occurring now whilst he is the leader. You can't do that. If it's on your watch, and I certainly don't blame Trump for the decades and decades of injustice, but on his watch, he's watching Rome burn, literally. The backlash from the people for that will be devastating. And I'd be saying the same thing if it was a Democratic president that was in power right now. It's not what colour runs the country, it's what they do. Bacon, revised bacon, okay. Sounds a good idea. Well, we didn't hear from Bunnies today about our shed or our clothesline.
Well, the clothesline was supposed to come in today, wasn't it?
Mm.
Should have got it from somewhere else. Didn't think it'd take this long to get a bloody clothesline.
No, I got that cord I got to put on the other side of the door. That's coming too.
And the lawn stuff.
Yep, and that will help get it on about now with winter.
I just wish the crows had stopped digging it up.
I picked up most of the clippings with the lawnmower.
I know, but it was looking so good.
It's okay. It will return to its goodness. You've got to have the badness to get the goodness.
Yeah, but what are they getting? Picking up all the brutes.
Have a great day, Danny.
Yes, we're going to go to.
We say good night because we are going as well.
Sleep well, or whatever you're doing today, night, wherever you are.
And I ask all of you to be careful. I just don't want any more major incidents to occur because it will make things a lot worse. So if you have to, stay home. Don't rubberneck. Good night.